All right, welcome on in. It is episode 92 of Geographically Challenged, and today we have a lot to talk about. Some of it good, some of it not so good. So just to quickly cover what's going to be on today's episode, we do have the somebody match-fixing drama. We'll get into all of that. That's probably the big news. We've got Extremesland versus Alter Ego, the bunch of roster changes that we have had over the course of Asian Counter-Strike, and we'll check in with the VRS rankings as well, because we are starting to get into major time. It's about a month before those invites do go out. But our first news of the day, of course, like I said, being the somebody news, was so terrible that we actually had to get India and Pakistan to declare a truce to talk about it. So we've got Tea Time here today, and Bleh, obviously. But welcome back, Tea Time.
I'm glad that we continue to be the official representatives of two of the more dangerous nuclear nations in the world. And when it comes to Counter-Strike, it's always good to be here to talk diplomacy. And look, China's always a good topic to talk about between the two of us, apparently. But enough about geopolitics. Jordan, are you surprised?
Am I surprised?
About what, India and Pakistan putting on nukes away to talk about Chinese Counter-Strike, or about somebody?
And I've got my nuke ready for you, Bleh. Don't worry.
No, I think it's actually a really good question, by the way, because when you first asked that to me, my initial reaction was no, which is kind of sad, actually, in a little bit of a way. I will say, look, again, obviously, before we get too far into this, all of this is currently allegedly, or a discussion that isn't a true fact, or it's a rumor, I guess, at this stage. Just want to put that out there, but it doesn't look good, obviously. So I will say I'm surprised in a way that it is somebody that's implicated in this, and obviously a lot of the other pros as well. But I think of all of the pros, I probably am surprised the most that it's somebody's name that's coming up here. But just in general, I would say I'm not super surprised to see something like this within Chinese Counter-Strike. Obviously, we've seen over the last 10 years or so, always there's this conversation about, this game could be match fixed, that game could be match fixed, this and that. You hear all these rumors all the time, and this seems like now the first time we're kind of starting to get some solid evidence or information. Is it fair to call it evidence at this stage? I guess we'll get into that as we jump into the discussion here. But look, let's just start it off. I'll probably have a little bit of a spiel here to quickly update everyone as to what's going on, and then we'll obviously get into the discussion around it, because there's a lot to cover here. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to just get out into the air. Now, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see I've got a couple of graphics ready to go and look at those as we go. But obviously, for the audio listeners, I'll try to go through it and give you a bit of an idea as to what's on the screen if necessary. So just to kick things off here, basically the current conversation is around somebody, the former Rare Atom / Tyloo player, well, obviously a legendary Counter-Strike player from China, one of the most recognizable Asian Counter-Strike names, I'd say, over the last 10 years. And certainly, as you've put it, Blair, I think a talismanic player of the region.
Well, actually, I saw someone reply back to that tweet of mine when I said he's perhaps one of the most talismanic players in recent Counter-Strike history, and he said, yeah, I can't believe you call him talismanic. You don't know anything about Counter-Strike. So, random Twitter guy,
there you go.
Could be right,
Yeah. I mean, I guess he's right.
You realize you're going to stop being hired off of every Asian tournament ever because of that one guy now, right? You've just had all Asian authority taken away from you.
No longer a reputable commentator or analyst.
That's blame me, yeah.
It is what it is. Anyway, so somebody's essentially been accused of match fixing and being involved in match fixing, and not just actually match fixing, but it seems like also trying to corral other people into doing it. So he's not just, in theory, doing it himself, but he's also, essentially somewhat of a ringleader or someone that's kind of like in charge of trying to organize fixes, which obviously makes it a little bit worse. Now, again, I want to reiterate that this is all alleged. Before we, because I'm not going to say allegedly every single time, you know what I mean? Everything we talk about in this somebody discussion at this point is not confirmed. There's no, necessarily guaranteed evidence or anything like that. So I just want that caveat to be really reiterated.
I think it's also important to add in that we're probably never going to get confirmation either.
Maybe.
That's something that is to keep in mind when it comes to the Chinese scene and, match fixing allegations in any esports. 99% of them, no matter how much evidence there might seem to be, never actually turn to anything. So this will probably always remain allegations, which sucks, but, it is what it is.
Well, I mean, I think you could often in that kind of situation, like, read between the lines a little bit. Like, if that person, just disappears and never comes back, you kind of go, okay. I'm putting two and two together here. What I did actually see, this is already a bit of a tangent, as I'm sure there's going to be many tangents throughout this conversation. I did see someone say that there might have been some police involvement in China, that they were going to go and talk to somebody. But that I don't know whether that's been confirmed or whether that even happened. But anyway, so basically all of this started, and this is actually on the screen here is a pretty good summary, I think, of what happened. That's why it's the first graphic that we've got here. What was kind of the catalyst for all of this news coming out was there's this streamer in China. I don't know how big he is, but obviously some sort of influencer of note. His name is Shukbei, however you pronounce it. And he was the one that essentially like leaked all of this information. So basically, to start from top to bottom, the leak initially was that Chen Peng, which is a player, his name is Mac Daddy. If you want to look him up on HLTV, MACK Daddy, was or is a relative or a friend of somebody, and is apparently the main like organizer or ringleader of Chinese match fixing. Now he's played a couple of like HLTV matches, but he's certainly not somebody of note. But then when we're talking about somebody, the player, he's obviously very well known, and apparently somebody was kind of like his right-hand man and was helping him out. Atox apparently was owned by this Mac Daddy character, so you can imagine obviously that is a big reason why that Atox roster ended up being accused of match fixing or was match fixing. And I think a big catalyst for all of this, it seems like, was Boros has essentially, I think, given this streamer like a testimony or something like that. There was a video of Boris essentially saying what had happened to him, and there's also a tweet as well, which we'll show on the screen in a second here. That he was approached by Mac Daddy and somebody at one point. So in this video, he says Frankie. This guy's name's Frankie. Apparently. So Frankie and somebody approached Boros at one point and essentially asked him to match fix. They took him out for dinner or drinks, got him a little bit tipsy, and then asked him if he was interested in match fixing. And that is Boros's word, essentially. That's what he says happened. Obviously, you can't necessarily say that is exactly what happened, but there is evidence of that dinner happening because there is a photo of that dinner. So, that at least very much seems to be true. Now, throughout all of this, apparently this was kind of like brewing under the surface in China for a little while. And Didi, the player, again, was someone that tried to kind of like, I guess, play the mediator between the leaker, which is Shukbai, and Mac Daddy. Apparently they wanted to try and stop this information coming out about somebody. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. Again, all alleged. And also, what I will put out here is that there has often been in the past like some level of distrust, I guess, when it comes to Didi. Yeah, suspicion. Because there's been a couple of incidents, I would say. One of which I think I can bring up on the screen here. If I'm quick about it. If you remember a long time ago, there was this which was from 2021. Didi's team Wings Up were disqualified from this like local Chinese tournament because of like some, basically it was a conflict of interest, but then also the further you read in this article, it comes down to like they weren't really trying in this game, and it's like kind of like, oh, was it a match fix? Not sure, but like there wasn't really any evidence, but like this is one of those things where you look at it and go, reading between the lines, obviously it doesn't necessarily look fantastic. So there's that. Just seeing Didi's name in there, you kind of already a little bit concerned about things.
Also, by the way, Jordan, you're doing a fantastic job with these graphics. If you guys aren't watching this on YouTube, you should be. And comment the timestamp down below and say Jordan, best producer ever.
There you go.
Like subscribe as well, because you're not going to remember to say that.
We're raising the bar here at Geographically Challenged, mate. It's all the only good thing that we can do these days. Anyway, so just to quickly wrap it up, basically, there's allegations against somebody for match fixing, against this Frankie / Mac Daddy guy for essentially being the ringleader of it, and then there's a bunch of other names that are mentioned in the conversation that we don't necessarily have any exact evidence for, but again, this Shukbai guy, this leaker, has like essentially said like, I can pretty much like say all these people, and then it's kind of like at this point it's just like people bouncing back and forth, rumors all over the place. There's also on top of that, which again I think we should also get into, an allegation that somebody the player / somebody, anybody, has been using something which is called a soft router cheat. I didn't know what that was until this. We can talk about that at some point as well. And then, there's been all these sort of allegations that people have been cheating in online matches as well. Names like Dog Evil coming up a little bit there. So there's a lot to break down here, and I think we probably should just get in the discussion, and there's a lot more little bits of information that I can chuck in here as we go on. But I guess, T-Tam, you obviously asked me at the start, am I surprised? I guess I'll fire that question back to you. to just get your initial reaction, because I'm sure as we go through this conversation, Bleh's probably going to break down in tears that his favorite player of all time, somebody, is a match fixer, but or potential match fixer. But what's your take first of all?
I think I'm going to start things off by saying I'm actually very glad that this has come out, because there's always been suspicions around some of these older players, and I never really believed them until what I saw happening with Atox, right? Because Dobu and Cabal was sort of my heartbreak moment when I read that these guys have been involved in match fixing with a pretty large amount of evidence over there. Now that I see people like somebody who, listen, I'm probably less emotionally invested in the old Tyloo team compared to you guys. I'm a little bit more, modern Asian fanboy since 2019 or so. 6 years is modern. But this is where I am just glad it's come out. I'm not surprised in the slightest. To be honest, the only thing that just in my head is kind of heartbreaking is the idea that potentially even his return to Rare Atom and everything, which I was so excited about. Michael was super excited about as well. A lot of the Asian Counter-Strike fans were excited about it. Now I just think, so were you just coming back in to be able to have further links to be able to continue this match fixing ring, if this did indeed exist? And it just sort of adds in this idea of questionability to any Chinese pro that comes back who's 28 years plus old and has had a career already, is coming back in and probably isn't going to be able to, realistically, you're not going to make the major very often. Maybe you have the off chance, maybe you can luck in, but there isn't really money to be made for you. You'd like to believe they're doing it for the love of the game, but now I'm just thinking, hey, are you just coming in here to help with your little crime ring that you've got going on with your cousins or whatever? That's what breaks my heart more than anything else. Other than that, I'm not overly surprised. If anything, it's a little bit expected to me.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely puts a negative spin on that particular run for him, but also I think the thing that I look at as being a really sad moment, particularly because I've been looking at photos of somebody's career, because I'm gonna have to make a thumbnail for this episode, right?
Meme.
so I look back at yeah, exactly. Actually, I look back at the win that they got. I think it was against Fnatic, right, at the Shanghai Major, where they were 0-2, and they knocked Fnatic out of the Shanghai Major, and I think that for me was probably maybe the best moment that Chinese Counter-Strike has probably had in the last 5 to 10 years almost. Probably not 10 years, but let's say 5 years, because there's not been a lot of success for Chinese Counter-Strike, right? A win for the team, for a Chinese team against an international roster at a major in front of a home crowd. There was a lot of people there, and people were obviously really stoked about that. And the photos, there is obviously pure joy coming out of those Rare Atom players. So to some element, you can see that, for somebody and for the team as well. And again, I don't want to necessarily have people draw conclusions between Rare Atom, the team, and the org, and what's happened here, because there's actually not been any allegations against anyone. Well, actually, that's not true, but against most of the people.
Can I just jump in about this? That's what I find really weird, and maybe this was just me being strange, because the parallel I'll draw to this is sort of the Kaylee/Kukli case that happened. Obviously, Valve came out and was like, "Okay, Titan, you're all fucking banned. You guys aren't allowed to play in the major. Next major, maybe we'll figure it out." And you must have known it was going on. That felt a bit extreme to me in this case, where everyone seems to know if he's going out to random pros. There's random pros. You didn't mention this, but obviously Kassad had professional players reaching out to him as well. If it's so pervasive that you have professional players being reached out to from the West, even, that's where I just have to assume that, dude, how do you not know? Everyone hears rumors, everyone's able to follow these things up. You have to have had an idea at the very least on the team level or an organizational level. This isn't like the cheating thing for me. I do raise eyebrows. I more eyebrows than I have. If I had 3 eyebrows, I'd raise them all.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a conversation point. And again, I've got the pictures of those tweets, or the tweet that Kassad put out as well. We'll get into that at some point here. But yeah, I was looking back at those photos of the Rare Atom win, and I was like, this is such a great, obviously a great moment for Chinese Counter-Strike, not just Chinese Counter-Strike, but obviously Asian Counter-Strike. This was before Mongols really, really went on a run. Obviously they were already quite good, but it was oh, finally, someone's doing something good for Counter-Strike in Asia, and it was this was just even unexpected as it was. So I think that was a really, really cool moment, and it obviously meant a lot to those players, and to even to somebody you can look at those photos and tell me tell me he wasn't fucking well locked in that moment. So it's kind of just you look at what's the word, like the discrepancy between the two, I guess the two versions of somebody. One which is like this hardcore competitor that really wants to succeed in Counter-Strike, and I'm sure there's part of that, part of him that still wanted to be that player. But then there's obviously the other part that has allegedly done all of these things and decided that this was more, this one was more valuable than this one, I guess. And so it's all a bit disappointing that, you have those highs, but you also have these lows. So very, very disappointing if all of this is true. But yeah, Bleh, I mean, obviously you've been a little bit quiet here. So what do you throw in the ring here?
I think the irony being in what you said right there of, somebody in Rare Atom not going 0-3, first major in China and all of that. And again, if you go back to the last time we saw a Chinese team being truly relevant, it was still somebody, right? It was DD, it was Captain Mo, Benton, and Excret right there. So he has been someone who's been, I'm going to use the word again, very talismanic. I wouldn't say the best player from China. I don't think so. I think, Fancy was always up there. If you ask me, or Summer, depending on which generation you are. But I just feel it's really tragic that someone this big, right, name-wise, wasn't just match fixing, but like you said, like he's involved in this along with his cousin and everything, allegedly, right? But for me, the worrying thing is now, if other names, and there's been a lot of allegations, and I agree with T-Time, maybe we'll never really have any true closure on this, right? But it kind of paints that entire generation of players, and for me in particular, man, like, I my entire launch pad, so to speak, into this career was via that Asian scene back in 2013 to 15 to 16. So all these names of people I'm very intimately familiar with. And some of them I would even call acquaintances, right? So now if you bring up, and I've heard names like, obviously, like we've had players like Xiao Sage, now obviously tainted alongside Atox, and a lot of names I've heard over the years, and I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe I can believe that. I can 100% believe it. But then now we bring up somebody. And then what next, right? Summer?
Yeah,
Captain
well, actually,
Mo.
I mean, unironically, just to quickly...
They are mentioned.
Yeah, they're mentioned. Not Captain Mo, at least in this particular conversation I haven't heard. But I'll just quickly run through the extra information that I didn't read out earlier. So Mac Daddy and somebody, obviously, as far as the leaks are concerned, are the ringleaders, but there is apparently a large number of other Chinese players that are linked or involved, and maybe even international players as well. The notable names that I've seen mentioned, and again, I'll just caveat this, all alleged, X-Pro and Summer, obviously. So that would be the old Rare Atom lineup. So somebody X-Pro, Summer, and then Fuzi and Corey, who were apparently not part of the match fixing, according to this leaker. But obviously that means, Summer would be implicated there as well. Xiao Saga and Viva as well, which, if you remember, was part of the former Invictus Gaming roster. So Invictus Gaming of maybe 2018, 2019, was probably like the third place Chinese team in a position similar to maybe where Rare Atom is at right now. And they were always a very kind of like goofy team to watch if you would maybe liken them to the way that Rare Atom sort of has these like really weird moments. You just watch the game and be like, what the fuck is going on here? So that's kind of another believable one, if that makes sense. Those are the names. Obviously as well, the old Bentet era of Tai Lu even got brought up, that apparently there was a fix going on there that they were paid a lot of money for. And then, it's like, is all of this true? Is there any truth in here, or is it just people trying to slander names? We don't really know, but just to put those names forward, that's what's been conversed about.
What's even worse for me is I've heard a lot of stories over the years, right? And one particular tale that sticks out to me is, I'm not going to name any names. In fact, I've even forgotten exactly which team it was, but it was a recent team, so to speak. And then you had these players, most of them very, very young, right? They don't have much old experience. They're fresh, getting the opportunity to really, to play under an org, get a salary and everything. And I heard the story of like how one of the the team manager or the owner, I think it was the owner, walks into the room, just slams a fat stack of cash right there. It's like, you're going to throw this game right now.
Wow.
And the thing is, I've heard, and I'm sure this can't be verified, but I've heard from enough sources that there is organized crime involved in a lot of these things as well. So imagine you're like, some 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, just trying to make something of this, and then your owner is like, yeah, you want to be relevant in the scene, right? And this is back when Asia barely had any success, right? And it's only very recent that we've been having a little bit of success, thanks to the Mongols. And you kind of intimidate it, right? Like, and I can't even blame these kids for just being like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll throw this game. They might actually even be scared, right? And then obviously over the years, they're not going to come out because that's going to implicate themselves and further ruin their career. So it's kind of like a catch-22 for all these young people as well. So it's not just about yourself just throwing your games or organizing this, but basically just completely kind of, holding people's arms behind their backs, all these helpless young players who potentially could have done great things, right? So all the, it just if you just start thinking about the implications of all of this, you can't stop. It's good. I mean, this podcast would be like 4 or 5 hours. We keep talking about this.
No, I'm sure.
I think it's also really bad, on the young player thing, which is that one of the problems that's always been there is the entire idea that, hey, if you do it once, they've got the leverage over you. So if you want to have a career, we tell you to throw, then you throw, right? And this is one of those things that I think players don't really understand, which is that, hey, there's probably a lot of match fixing you can get away with. Very frankly, like there's probably, and look, on an ethical level, it's absolutely awful. I think you are scum and who is literally robbing people if you're match fixing. But just on a level of, hey, can you get away with it? There's probably a lot of matches where you can. But the problem is going to be, then there's going to be the match that actually matters to you eventually because, hey, maybe you're like, just as an example, X-Pro has been, put into allegations for. X-Pro is one of the up and coming IGLs. Maybe a team like Tyloo is considering you, and then they're like, well, we've been leaked that this guy's had like match fixing issues. Well, maybe we don't pick you up even when we have to turn to Mercury as our IGL, for example. Hey, well, you know what? Maybe X-Pro is going up against that Tyloo and he thinks, oh my God, we can actually win this one. We should definitely take this. And if we win this, we qualify for the fucking major. You know who's coming knocking? Oh, knock, knock, knock. We've got video footage of you accepting that fat stack of cash that Bleh just talked about. If you don't throw this game, your career is going to be over. You're not going to make the major anyway, bub. So just shit like this is ever perpetuating. And unfortunately, I think players in the West have maybe started to come to terms with this a little bit more, but I really feel like players in the East just have not really gotten to that point. And the other thing is now we're starting to see things like 6 teams at the major formation and whatnot. And I do want to put a slight bit of positivity onto this, which is not what I'm normally known from. I'm a bit of a negative Nancy normally. If there are 6 teams going to the major from Asia, and if this becomes sort of like a consistent thing, a lot of this match fixing stuff will become a lot harder to coax players into because there's going to be more success stories. There's going to be more players flat out making large amounts of money from stickers and whatnot as well. Even if you go back to like 2018, Tyloo, who made, I think it was top 8 at London and stuff as well. These are the kinds of teams that back then major stickers only, from what I've heard, gave you like $35,000 to $50,000 for the entire team. It wasn't a lot of money. So now we're making the major is more viable. Stickers give you more money. There is actually pathways to make sure that players do not get into match fixing. Of course, it ideally comes in, like actual campaigns from influencers in Chinese Counter-Strike and whatnot as well, right? Like shit like that would probably go very well over the next few years. But at the end of the day, what I just want to see is all of these fucking old heads who are involved in these match-fixing rings. And even if it's not somebody, right? From the amount of evidence there is, I think it's fair to say there's probably a few old heads at the very least.
Oh yeah.
Get these people the fuck out of here. That's all I want. I do not want them in the scene anymore. Tyloo's just won Fissure recently. Tyloo's doing really well. Lane Vision is doing really well. They've got Zacher. They've got Westman. They've got like their own talismanic players. We have a new generation coming up. I don't give a fuck about these people who are involved in corruption. I don't care about these people who are absolutely atrocious human beings. I don't care about these people who have put their entire region on their back and then thrown it on the ground, spit on it, and pissed on it. Like, these people can fuck off. I don't care how much of a figure they were before. I don't want them around. And if this is going to be what it takes to just nuke them, absolutely go to hell and beyond.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, and that's, Agreed. I think the one positive takeaway from this whole thing is that in all of the conversations that I've seen, everybody is saying that the current day Tyloo and Envision players are clean. Now, obviously, they've got some of their own issues based on some of the conversations that we've had on last week's episode, but at least as far as match fixing is concerned, it seems like at this stage, there's no evidence or nothing to say that any of those current crop of players, let's say the newer generation, have been involved in that. And obviously, we've not heard anything like that about, some of the other players that are doing well currently in Asian Counter-Strike. So it does seem to be a more of an older generation pointed kind of conversation. I think now's probably a good time to just quickly get some of the evidence out that has been thrown in. So I'll just quickly show you guys the tweet from Boros for anyone that's listening along that can't watch it. He says, "Hey everyone, when I was in China, somebody," he says, when I was. It's not in great English. He says, "Hey everyone, when I was in China at somebody's CS, he was playing in Rare Atom in the time. He and his friends asked me to match fix and I refused. And this people need to get banned from esports. Thanks for GG How for getting me out from this people in the time, and thanks for China fans." So basically, he's saying like when he was in China at some point, I believe, based on the video that I saw from Boros, which I can't show, but I'll link maybe in the description if anyone wants to see it. I think it was when he was in Falcons. Now, as to when this actually happened, I don't know. It probably would have been like a Chengdu maybe last year, or a Shanghai last year, or a CAC last year, let's imagine. Just based on the timeline, if somebody, I should have probably checked this before we talked about this, but I didn't think to do it. But that would have been when somebody was in Rare Atom, and I believe it was when Boros was in Falcons. So would that have been last year, or would that have been 2023? I'm trying to remember when Boros was in Falcons.
He was also in China doing the
JJ How?
Like when the Mesa event was happening, right before that, he was in China with JJ How at that time. So
like earlier on this year.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, that's a valid point. I mean, that may be possible as well. But basically, he said he was approached by somebody and this Frankie / Mac Daddy / Chen Peng guy, and they took him out for drinks. And that this tweet came out, by the way, about 10 to 20 minutes after Shukbai had been doing his live stream in China. That was the initial kind of catalyst for all of this leak. So Boros had given that Chinese streamer a video of him basically saying this is what happened. And then as that video was being played essentially on the stream in China, and that news was dropping, a little bit later, Boros now made this tweet. So obviously, that's that timeline. Again, that's Boros's word. You can take that at face value. You can take what you want from that.
The stupid part of this is also about how absolutely idiotic they were about like this entire match fixing thing as well. Like guys, if you wanted to be smart, all you had to do to get Boros to throw a game was message him and tell him about this new mouse on the market you just found out about, and be like, yo, you should really try this one instead. Guys, it's just that easy. Why are you so bad at being a criminal?
That's some low-hanging fruit, bro. I could see where that was coming a mile away. By the way, I just find it funny here. This is Bloggers, by the way. He played in China as well in the same way that Fozy and Corey did on Rare Atom. He played on Wings Up and apparently didn't get paid for it. So standard stuff.
Do you also have the Kassad tweet as well?
I do have the Kassad tweets. Yeah. So, I don't have that Kassad tweet, but basically what he said in the tweet was these were screenshots sent to him by a pro player that was messaged by somebody. Now, just for clarity, this is the Twitter, the profile that sent those messages, those DMs, assuming it's obviously not doctored, which I can't imagine that it would be. This is to my understanding somebody's Twitter. And obviously he's not active on Twitter, but you can see the last message he tweeted was 2023. He said, "Zeta, add me." Put a bit of two and two together there. Maybe trying to get involved in Valorant as well. Bro's hustling. But anyway, here's the tweets.
Yeah, I did clarify with Kassad. I just wanted to know what the timeline was for this, right? Because he's been hasn't really made too many tweets. Has somebody on his Twitter account, right? Yep. This is like around 2019.
Yeah, I was going to say this could have been ages ago when he was using Twitter.
This is ages ago. No, let's recontextualize that. That is, so 2018, London, face it, is when Ty Lue, they had that deep run. I mean, the deep run as in they made it to, not top 8, but like top 16, something, whatever, right? And then you had them, reach the finals or whatever of IM Sydney, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So this is a time with Ty Lue where doing pretty solid. Actually, the best that any Asian team had done thus far in CSGO at the very least. And during that time, this was going on, right? So for me, it's so insane. It's not about, we're not talking about like 2014, 15, 16 when there is the excuse that it was nothing happening. That's why we were match fixing, which is still not a valid excuse in any form whatsoever. But the fact that this was happening in 2019, now then you think about all these, especially during the COVID times, Jordan, you've seen this as well, like the number of teams and orgs that just came up and disappeared in between that period in time when they were having all these online RMRs and everything, which PGL was hosting. And then then my mind just explodes as to the potential match fixing that's happened at that point in time. It's insane. It is so insane.
I mean, the only questions I have here, actually, before we get into that, I will, again, just for the people that are listening along, quickly read through the tweets or the messages, the DMs. Somebody says to this pro player, we don't know who that pro player is. That's one of the first questions is who was this? Well, he says, bro, congratulations on your first victory. Are you finished? We can talk about something. The player replies, thanks, bro. Yeah, we can talk. He says, okay, good. My friends want me to send you a message. Do you need sponsorship from Asian Gambling Competition Network? And the pro says, what kind of sponsorship? Somebody replies with the smiley face. He says, he don't want to contact your team directly. They just want to contact and talk to you. My English is very poor. I hope you can understand if there are any mistakes. And then it goes on to say, we just ask, I hope you don't mind. And then the pro player replies, are you meaning match fixing? And somebody says, yes. If you're interested, we can talk about it through Chinese software, but don't worry, I just ask him, my brother. And the pro player then replies, yeah, it's okay, I don't want to do it. But that's the whole conversation that we've got at least. Now, that obviously looks pretty fucking bad. That's like, there's no reading between the lines there. He's literally asking, do you mean match fixing? And somebody says yes. Now, unless there's some mistranslation, which, come on, we're not brought down in the last shower. That seems really fucking bad. So my questions here with regard to this one is, one, who's the pro player? Obviously, that would be good information. Two, why is it taking this long to come out? And, three, why does it come through Cassard as opposed to, getting immediately reported to any number of, like ESL, PGL, Face It, like back then Face It,
HLTV,
ESIC. I don't know if ESIC existed back in 2019.
It did.
Yeah, all of these, any name. Like, why is it, only now coming to light as opposed to back then? Or was it brought to someone's attention back then and nothing was done? Like, or give it to a fucking journal, give it to Richard Lewis, or give it to whoever, right? Would have been all over this, I'm sure. Maybe already knew, but I don't know. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence that this could have come out and actually be a thing, and now it's only now starting to kind of come about because people are talking about it. But either way, yeah, obviously that's a really bad look from somebody, if that actually was messages that he did send, which again, how likely is it that these tweets are or these messages are gonna be faked? I don't know. Anyway.
I would just wonder how many messages players would get in general, right?
Like, yeah, and how often was this happening?
Right? Like because if this is something that's just like the norm, which is like, hey, as a player in like the top 15 teams who's probably attending tier 1 events, because it also says congratulations on your first win, right? So you're probably like a newly top 8 team or something like that. Yeah. So I would just imagine that this is one of those things where, hey, am I just getting 30 messages a day from who people, in my perspective, are just like kind of nobodies, because as much as Tyloo was obviously a serious team then, and was very successful, I don't think they'd gotten the same reputation in the international community compared to, how we look at a Mongols and even a modern day Tyloo. So it's like, hey, am I just getting 30 messages a day being like, hey, you want some fixing? You want
it's a valid point, but I think I would disagree with you, and I'm interested to see what you say, Bleh. But I think in 2019, if you got a message from someone from Tyloo, you'd be pretty like, what the fuck? Like, they were a pretty well-known team in 2019. This is not like, I agree. This is not like just like, this is not like someone from Chinggis Warriors coming to fucking Falcons and being like, hey, you want to fix this match? This is like, this was a top 10 team in the world in 2018.
Also, they are like replying to them, and this was a top 10 team. This was a top 10 team in 2019.
It's not a random guy. It's not just some random guy.
No, and this is totally somebody. And this account been following for a while, but like I believe this account is followed by quite a lot of people. You just have to click on it and you'll be like, oh, they have like a lot of mutuals.
He's having a conversation with Hazr, MBK, Vitality, Apex, like all these names. Like he's
all the old names, right? So yeah, I don't think there's any way you're going to be, surprised.
Peacemaker, Bentet, like all these names.
You would know. You would know. Yeah. I've heard a lot of tales, man. From people who have either played, from the West, not from Asia, but who have played or coached or been associated with a lot of these Chinese teams back in that time. So many tales I've heard as well, which obviously can never be verified, right? It's always going to be he said, she said.
Apex is replying to him on Twitter. Like,
no, this is Tyler somebody's Twitter account. Like, there is no doubt about it.
Yeah,
absolutely no doubt about it. And some people are even like, yeah, it's probably got hacked. I'm like, come on, bro. He did get on a stream, I believe,
He did, yes.
They did. Now, I didn't watch it. I mean, I'm not like I would have understood because I'm assuming he's been speaking in Mandarin. But I haven't really seen any transcripts of it either. But I believe he didn't even try to maybe deny about a Twitter account thing. He just said, I didn't do it, right? So he hasn't even personally denied that it's not his Twitter account, even though it's public information at this point. So look, again, it's very circumstantial. It's a lot of he said, she said, but you just kind of look at everything, right? And the picture kind of, it paints itself.
It does paint itself, yeah. Look, and we haven't even got into this cheating thing as well. So, I mean, just to quickly cap off the whole discussion, and then we can wrap up.
As if it couldn't get any worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll just wrap up after that. But like I mentioned when I was doing that initial spiel, there's this conversation around like this soft router thing. I had no idea what that even was. Like, I've never even heard of that before. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before this, but
no.
This is possibly quite pertinent because of what we've seen happening in like the EU tier 2 space as well. There's a lot of bullshit happening there. People are always throwing accusations back and forth. There's every other day there's like some Twitter thread of like, these are all the examples of this team with a radar hack, and it's like a
hello
demo.
At Faceit.
Yeah,
firing your anti-cheat team? Question mark?
Someone's gone through the demo and just picked up every single moment where they felt like they got hard done by, and sometimes you look at it and go, well, that just good timing? Is that luck? Can you really tell? Anyway, so I had to look up what a soft router radar is, and this is what the description of it is. It says it's been around for some time. It works by placing the cheat module inside the router. The router passes the game's data packets to obtain enemy locations and forwards them to an external device. You then view the radar on a phone, computer, etc. to achieve the cheating effect. As a result, traditional PC software/hardware detection mechanisms can hardly detect soft router radar. In cheating circles, it sells for sky-high prices and is advertised as working across all mainstream platforms. So, to my very limited understanding of how cheats would work and basic knowledge of computers, it seems like a DMA hack. Like, it's like if you understand what a DMA hack does, or a DMA, whatever it is, DMA cheat, I don't know. Again, I don't know all this terminology exactly. But how that operates, it's like injecting the hack, but not on the software or the hardware that the anti-cheat is looking at. Yeah, like you're playing on your PC, but there's no cheating on your PC. It's happening elsewhere. It's happening on the router. It's happening on your phone. And so, yeah, it's like you can see essentially where people are on a minimap on your phone. And
that's more than enough for if you're going to cheat, bro. I mean, if you play at a decently high level, which any of these guys are doing, right?
Which means you don't even have to be throwing necessarily. You can just cheat. And that's what this allegation is.
To win.
To get, like, the allegation is that somebody used this in the Rare Adam versus Tyloo Shanghai qualifier match, which I believe was the qualifier to the minor. They still had to make it through the minor, but they were able to beat Tyloo in the China qualifier to make it to the minor, because if you remember, Limvision got the invite for that Shanghai major, for the Shanghai major. So there's a lot there, obviously, and the only other evidence in this particular conversation is that there's a shareholder from Gigi Hao who apparently went into the Shukbai stream and was in the chat or something, and essentially claimed that Dog Evil. It says in the tweet here. Is it this tweet or is it this one? It's this one. It says Evil Dog, but I'm assuming that means Dog Evil. It's Dog Evil. Yeah. That they cheated in the online qualifiers to force Limvision and Tyloo into the lower bracket indirectly, which indirectly causes Jamyoung's Valorant stint. That's not in this one, but that was in another one that I saw. So it's obviously all related, or at least it's in theory all related. And again, we've heard these rumors as well about Dog Evil for a long time. Like, people are always saying like, "Oh, these guys fucking cheat," and it's like, well, do they? But like, you hear, where there's smoke, there's fire. Basically, is kind of like my takeaway in a lot of these situations.
It's also like, you got to remember, like, it's firstly, look at it from two angles, right, for these orgs. If you're looking at why they would do it for the Shanghai major, firstly, it's the first major in China, and we know how much it meant to all these organizations. Like, having your org make it to the major would immediately catapult yourself, like, to the realms of, let's say, a Tyloo, for example, in the region. Number one. Number two, obviously, the stick of money right there. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily believe it. There's, that's proof itself. But why they would want to do it, the reasons right there as well, right? And yes, I've heard a lot of things about Dog Evil as well. Like I said, man, it's just so much to talk about right now. Obviously, somebody being the big name is the reason. Now, even if I had my doubts about a few other names out there, but somebody looking very, very guilty at the moment right now, it just seems like a shit show. Yeah. It's depressing, Jordan.
The sad thing is, if somebody is involved, then you think anybody
can be,
which is like, it's so ironic. Like, that's not meant to be like a play on words or a pun or anything like that. But if somebody can do it, anybody can do it. That makes sense.
I think to add on to the cheating thing, which is that I think there's too much of a focus right now from people in the community, like, oh, hey, he might have cheated to qualify to the Shanghai Major, and like Jam Young could have gone to Valorant because of that, et cetera, et cetera. Like, sure, second order effects are different, but one of the things you also have to keep in mind is that a lot of the accusations around, for example, these European teams has historically been, hey, these guys clearly aren't good enough to win normally, right? So they're going to find new ways of hacking so they can boost up their rankings and then still be able to make money off of match fixing, because otherwise, if your rankings aren't high enough, you're not really making money off match fixing, et cetera, et cetera. I think what makes me probably believe the idea that there could be more of these sort of cheats going on, these router cheats or whatever, is just that, hey, reverse scoring is also kind of a thing, right? Which is that you do just cheat and then you bet on yourself, right? So that's also one of the ways that a lot of like hackers and cheaters make money. So if you're already starting what is effectively a miniature crime syndicate, that the other thing that has to be remembered is if this Mr. C guy did own Atox, I think ESIC officially said that Atox had ties to organized Chinese criminal activity as well. So you probably are getting to that point where you are just, involved with actual major criminal activity. So in a situation like that, you have incentive to hack more so than just, hey, qualifying to the major. It's also like, hey, every single win that you've gotten online is now going to be suspect in my eyes, because like, hey, even if you won a map versus like a better team, because Random normally does that, they'll like win a map in a series if they end up going abroad or something, right? And in my head, it's just like, oh, were you just using your soft router hack at that point to be able to get like that one win and that one like big betting swing or something like that? These are the things which come to mind. And unfortunately, the problem is when you start to cast a shadow of a doubt that is legitimate, then it's pretty inevitable that these teams are just covered in darkness, because I will believe anything at that point now. And I do believe everything at this point now.
Yeah. Anything that comes out at this stage, I think is probably not going to surprise me, short of like the Mongols have been cheating the whole time. Like that would be like, what the fuck? But like, like I can believe any of these online tournaments, any of these players that are playing in these online tournaments is potentially implicated in some way, shape, or form. But again, we'll see how this information develops as it continues throughout the coming weeks. Just to wrap up the topic, I guess my final thoughts are that, again, reiterating that at this stage, there's no concrete evidence or verdict. Also, verdict, there is evidence, obviously, that we've seen, but there's not been actually a verdict. There's not been any official sanctions or anything like that against somebody or anybody else. But it doesn't look good for somebody, and it doesn't look good for Chinese Counter-Strike as a whole. Somebody, to my knowledge, as you mentioned there in his stream, did deny the allegations, but I don't know what was actually said and how that was denied. But yeah, hopefully this is going to be like the moment where people are able to just get rid of, where we're able to get rid of all of the bad, you know what I mean? And
Tyloo and LinVision are fine. Guys, modern Counter-Strike is fine, right? That's also super important to always remember.
Yes. I also got to just add in, it does feel like, from my very cursory glance at how the reaction is from the Chinese fans, it seems like the majority of fans aren't being in denial, be like, yeah, there's no way somebody
they fucking hate it.
They seem to be up and on. They seem to be so have this random Chinese Twitter account just apologizing to me. I'm like, why are you apologizing to me, buddy?
You can read some of these tweets, and these are the replies to Boros.
Oh, there we go. See?
Like I don't even know what this says. I'm going to translate it. Fuck it. Okay,
Sun Bhavi.
Yeah, you can't really rely Chinese, but like,
I would like to officially say,
cannot move me. Wait, hold on. Poverty cannot move me. Might cannot bend me. Boros refuses to fix the match and provides evidence.
Yeah, it's like a HLTV
awesome.
title.
I don't want to get bent either. Yeah. Look,
but like the Chinese fans are obviously quite on board with the anti-match fixing sentiment that they're like,
and they should be. I think that's
thanks a lot. You'll make Chinese CS better. Like all these guys are Chinese. Like there's actually quite a big Chinese Twitter community, and they're all sort of good about
as
it.
a final kind of like just to put a wrap, just to wrap this up, right? I think. Yeah, the fact that these Tyloo, the current crop of Tyloo and LinVision players seem to be clean. Also, alluding to what he said earlier, Jordan, about how with how all these with the actually was T-Time said this, right? Like with all the events happening right now and more teams qualifying and everything, there's less incentives for a lot of people to match fix or cheat or whatever. So hopefully, this is just it's going to be an ugly post-mortem, but it's dead. Like hopefully it dies, right? And we move on from this. I think that can be the only positive take. Just move it, just go ahead, move on ahead.
It does seem like we're kind of getting through it. You know what I mean? Like obviously the ATOX stuff came out like a couple of months ago or a bit over that, maybe, I don't know. And
we're
that
getting
was like
rid of the gangrene.
Yeah, exactly. That was like the first domino, and then now this is the next one, and this kind of like seems like an even bigger domino where it's like, well, ATOX was just like the small fry. They were the guys that were like influenced to do the fixing, and now it's like we're seeing the guys that were influencing the fixing. So I don't want to say this is everybody. I don't want to say this is everything, but you want to hope that that's the case, and that has now all come out, that maybe we can go forward and CS in Asia can kind of focus on the good, which there has been a lot of good lately, and hopefully that will continue. But anyway, let's wrap that topic up unless you guys have anything else that you want to say about it. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, I'm done.
Let's move on.
Fuck somebody, if this is true.
Yes. All right. So the next news that we've got is just what's been going on at Extremesland. And this isn't necessarily major news, but I think worth addressing just because, again, Extremesland is one of the major tournaments, or probably one of the major LAN tournaments between Extremesland and I'd say ACL are like the two primary Asian CS-focused LAN tournaments in the calendar year. And Extremesland's coming up in December this year. So it was in January this year, but it's also going to be in December. Anyway, there was a little bit of drama with regard to Alter Ego and how they were trying to qualify regionally for Extremesland. So just as a quick TLDR, Alter Ego is a team which at this stage, and this could be wrong because these teams change players all the time, but I believe it's comprised of an Indonesian, Singaporean, Korean, Polish, and Lebanese player. I did see Gratisfaction, I think, in a Faceit lobby with these guys maybe as well, so there may be like a New Zealander involved there as well. And essentially they can't play in the Extremesland qualifier because it's all regional qualifier rules. They were supposed to play through the Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia qualifier, and they actually had booked a boot camp in Malaysia. But obviously you look at that roster and you think, well, there's one Singaporean, no Thai players, no Malaysian players. How can they play in that particular qualifier? And that's a concern that was raised by other teams. After there was it seemed like there was some degree of approval from Extremesland with regards to like the residency rules. I think in the rule set, it said there was a residency based on a month of living in a location or a week or something like that. And so they deemed them to be Singapore, or in this case, I think they had the boot camp in Malaysia. So in that case, Malaysian residents, as a result of that, teams obviously complained about it. And then Extremesland took a second look at it and went, well, okay, I guess they're not technically. So based on the rules, and just, again, you can read this statement for yourselves and have a look at it. I won't read this one because it's absolutely massive. So if you're listening along, go to the Extremesland Twitter and you can see it there. But based on what I can ascertain from this situation, it seems like the correct call was actually made to deny them approval to compete in these qualifiers just based on the letter of the law, which I believe says you need a core 3 of players that are residing in
I think that's location. A big mistake. But that was the original mistake.
That's the problem. So that's where I want to go with this. I think they've actually made the right call in terms of their rule set, but I actually don't think that it's a good outcome. I think this is a poor outcome, actually, because I think, looking at that Alter Ego team, it is primarily an Asian roster. Like the majority of the players there are from Asia. They should be able to play in Extremesland if they are good enough to qualify. The problem is they don't have a qualifier that they can play in with that roster. So what do? You now have to get into this situation where we have to create a team of like 3 Singaporean players or 3 Indonesian players or 3 Malaysian players. Well, actually not Indonesian because there was no Indonesian qualifier, or 3, Malaysia players. It's like, you can't really do that in this day and age of Counter-Strike. And I understand that, like, historically, that has been what Extremesland has been. It's always been semi-national based, these teams. But we're not in that era of Counter-Strike anymore, particularly in Asia, particularly in Southeast Asia. You're not going to get, in a lot of cases, a full Singaporean team or a full Malaysian team. It's just not going to happen. So I do think there should be like a general SEA qualifier instead of what's happened here.
So Jordan, I wasn't able to figure this out, but you could theoretically just have like 1 Malaysian player, 1 Singaporean player, and 1 Thai player. And
I believe that would be fine,
right?
Yeah,
so it's not as restrictive as like the old WSG was, for example.
No, it's like a qualifier for those 3 countries combined.
Yeah, so basically, you see 3 players from those 3 countries. It's not quite that restrictive as it used to be once upon a time, right? Okay.
Yeah, but the issue is obviously like, and again, we talked about this in previous episodes. Like, you've got a Korea qualifier for Extremesland. It's like there's basically no Korean teams. So why are we dedicating an entire qualifier to this particular region when you could, you know, okay, sure, maybe you want to have some specific regions. You want to have a China region, you want to have an ANZ region, you want to have a Mongolia region. Maybe you want to have a Middle Eastern qualifier as well, like all these sub-regions. But like beyond that, we don't need a Vietnam qualifier. We don't need a Thailand qualifier. We don't need a Korea qualifier. We don't need a Japan qualifier. Put them all together. Just have a rest of Asia qualifier. That's all the other regions. They all play against each other. And then you have the best competition you can possibly have. And then a team like Alter Ego can play. And it's no problem. But obviously, that's not what Extremesland have done. So, you know, on one hand, like I said, they made the right call. It is what it is. It's really unfortunate, obviously, for Alter Ego, the players, but also the organization for, I assume, sort of putting up the money for the boot camp and then being told that they can't. So that's a bit of a fumble, unfortunately. But I think there is a better outcome that can be looked at here in the future for Extremesland. I'm hoping that they'll have a bit of a further look at, you know, the regional allocations going into, you know, whatever happens next year, if anything happens for Extremesland next year.
I think it's kind of important to sort of clarify how the Extremesland financing works over here, right? Before anything else for me, because for context to anyone, last year I was able to talk to Extremesland about some of their budgeting stuff, etc., and how they manage payments and things like that for whatever reason. And they are really heavily dependent on departmental budgets to actually get these projects to completion, right? So, for example, Zowie, one of the reasons why they don't, so they used to have a Pakistan qualifier, directly Pakistan and India qualifier, but one of the reasons why they don't have that anymore is because they don't have like a department actually covering that. Because the idea is that the marketing cost from the Pakistan and India department would be what actually sends like a team over and it handles all the fees and everything. So a lot of these logistical fees cannot be like handled by the overall Zowie, because that's just not how their company structure works. And this is not like a tournament with other sponsors, etc. They don't want to be diluting their brand and everything, right? So because of that, it becomes more challenging to actually hold these rest of Asia qualifiers. Now, I'm not saying that shouldn't happen, but I do just think this is important context to viewers who, you know, maybe don't really know why there's this idiosyncratic tournament happening where it just feels like, why, first of all, why the fuck is everything in qualifier? Why can't we have invited teams, etc., things like this? But there are financial reasons behind this. Now, that's also because there is no other way to monetize this, and that probably means that the streaming still can't be monetized to an extent where they can say, hey, okay, maybe we can actually just take some of the money we were making off of this tournament rather than treating it like a pure marketing expense on a regional level. That's a separate concern as well. But there are like economic reasons for this. And you know, now maybe we can get into that conversation. I just think this is important context.
No, I mean, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Honestly, I think that's a really great point. And again, we sort of did mention that initially when we were talking about the qualification slots that were allocated by Extremes, and I think it's a very pertinent point to remember that this is a Zowie marketing tournament. That's really what this is. Like, it's not purely
like last year. It wasn't even VRS, by the way.
It wasn't. Yeah, as far as I know, this year it's going to be, but it's not basically. It is meant to be good Counter-Strike. Like, that's the idea, but like, it's not purely just, this is a Counter-Strike tournament, we're going to do exactly what is best for Counter-Strike. It's like, well, we are Zowie and we are running this to sell Zowie products at the end of the day, and how we need to do that based on our regional offices and the way that the company is structured makes sense. I know the ANZ office obviously has a lot of involvement in how the ANZ qualifier is running, which, by the way, is happening this weekend, so you can watch that on DFrag if you're interested.
There you go.
Let's move on from that, and this is probably Tea Time's favorite topic of the day. FlyQuest have removed Erkast as the coach. We didn't talk about this on the last episode. It is kind of old news, but we just forgot to talk about it, so we'll quickly cover it here. Do you want to have anything to say here? Because Bleh, I was going to say, do you want to have anything to contribute here? Because if we let Tea Time talk about this, it's probably going to go for 15 minutes. So I'd say get what you want to say out of here pretty quickly.
About Erkast?
Yeah.
Okay, I find it strange because we all remember how Dexter got cut from the team, right? Now,
same thing, isn't it?
I don't care which. It's pretty much the same thing, but I don't care which side you fall. You know, I wasn't a big fan of it initially because I felt like, you know, he didn't really have too much time to really, you know, work with the new team and everything. And with the changes that took place, they were just playing nonstop. I was a bit surprised, but one would assume that Erkast and Inns and all these guys were kind of, I don't want to use the word in cahoots, but they were kind of together saying that we don't really identify with how Dexter is calling things, and might have been some personal differences, like, you know, attitude differences or whatever. So suddenly they're like, oh yeah, we're going to cut Erkast as well. That's a bit surprising. It is, but overall, I just feel like, you know, I don't think Erky really added too much to the team, in all honesty. I think they plateaued for a very long time. Also, by the way, it just feels like the coaches they're getting are just like people they're familiar with. It's always the vibes thing. All like we know these guys for a long time. And looking at Erkast, look, he was always a solid member of the old, the Greyhound team he played for. After that, his experience, like his coaching experience, which with in Mongolia, right? Like, and where he didn't really do much, and then he joins this team. So I feel. I think an upgrade would be good. I think an upgrade would be really good for the team. But also, like I said, I'm a little surprised that, they've kind of broken up after having kicked out Dexter.
Yeah, in that respect, it's a little bit surprising to me. I'm not super surprised to see a change happening again. I mean, obviously,
I would like an upgrade.
FlyQuest have been very aggressive with the roster changes to this lineup over the past 12 months. We've seen Regali come in, we've seen Nedic come in. This is now like the third change, I would say, in about 9 months. So it seems like almost every 3 months, something is changing with the roster. They're really trying to figure it out. Obviously, the results, I guess, haven't been there to the level which FlyQuest is happy with as an organization, and I think they're taking quite a heavy-handed approach in changing the roster, which I don't necessarily hate. We've talked about in the past how it often has been a bit of a problem for Greyhound to be just quite stagnant with the roster, and not making those upgrades. Now, whether you consider some of these changes that they've made upgrades or downgrades, there's obviously a big conversation to be had around Nedic for Dexter in particular. At least they're trying something, I think, and it's not a surprise to see that kind of continue until there's an uptick in the results, if there's going to be an uptick in results. So I'll just say this quickly before you start talking, Tea Time. The rumor has it that it is Hazr that's going into the coach role here for FlyQuest. Now, whether or not that's true, I have no source to corroborate as a guaranteed fact, and actually based on FlyQuest's interest in European players in the regards to Regali in the past, I wouldn't necessarily be too surprised to see a European name come in here. I think that would also make a lot of sense. But yeah, the rumor that I've heard is Hazr. So say what you will.
Yeah. This team's a fucking shit show, honestly. Like, it's ridiculous. And look, I will add in my biases, right? My biases is that earlier on this year, FlyQuest is also the only team, literally the only team, which I've watched every single match of this year because I decided to hate watch them a little bit.
Okay.
I am, first of all, I am a fan of this team because I want them to succeed, because I really like the idea that there are some really individually skilled players on this team, and we could have like an Australian team also in the top 20. And you have to remember, at the end of the day, there is nothing that would be sicker for me than, hey, if we have Mongols in like a real top 4 conversation, and then we have 3 other teams in 10 or 20 from A. Like, that trumps everything for me. I would fucking love that. I am a genuine fan of Asian, like APAC Counter-Strike before anything else, right? Said, let's look at the timeline for this team, okay? First of all, I'll add a bit of context from what I've heard, because obviously, I've been at some events with these players now as well. I've obviously been able to have conversations behind the scenes. From what I am aware, there might have been something on the lines of, hey, maybe you can't make too many changes in the roster initially when they were signed and whatnot, right? Like, again, not going into too many details. That could have been one of the stipulations. But then my only question is, when you start to make roster moves, why are all of them absolutely fucking nonsensical? Right, like genuinely down to the last bit, and every one of them, one for one, is an upgrade. But when it comes to looking at things as a team, they're pure nonsense. So you start things off with, okay, we're going to make only one move, which is Regali for Alistair. All right, fine. To be frank, Liaz needed to be replaced even back then. I think it was very clear to people. And then when you're actually looking at the kind of things that you're missing by not having Alistair there, Alistair is objectively a worse player than Regali is. There's no doubt about that. But if you actually look at how this team was playing in terms of, who's taking the shit when it comes to, hey, these late rounds and these mid rounds, who's clearly calling like, hey, I can throw this flash for you, I can do this for you, I can do X, Y, Z for you, was missing the second Ali went out of this team, right? And sure, maybe you're hoping that Dexter or Inns or Vexite can step up. I don't think they've shown an ability to step up. So if you want them to now change as players, you need someone who's going to change them as players. You need a new coach. Erkast has been pretty useless to this team, in my opinion, in general. I think he could actually be very useful in the Mongolian scene. I don't think his Counter-Strike career should be over right now. But this is just one of those places where, all right, so now you need to change your current players because you're getting this hotshot new opera coming in. At least that's what your assumption is. Who's there to change them? No one. Oh, okay, fine. I guess we just watch this sort of degrade because you don't have anyone who can corral the team together in mid rounds, and you don't have anyone who can actually corral the team together after you have a good half and lose a few rounds. Michael has this thing that he's coined the FlyQuest half. Michael, of course, Yumi, to anyone who's not familiar. But Michael calls it the FlyQuest half, which is when you have a really good half, like a 9-3 or something, and then you just shit the bed completely after you lose the pistol round because you're starting to get so nervous in the second half. This is something that was so common for them. Okay, but fuck it. You know what? You've got Regali now coming in. Regali's clearly individually amazing. I had my doubts about some of his individual skill, but he's like absolutely exceeded and gone beyond all of those. Now you're like, well, you know what? We need more talent. We're going to replace Dexter with fucking Netic. Like, look, I agree with that addition to your lineup. I think Netic was great, but now you've removed the one person who has provable IGLing experience. By the way, I also didn't think Dexter was the right IGL to have at that point, regardless, if you're not going to be replacing the coach. But the problem is the way Dexter leads, and this is also one of the reasons why, from what I've heard, he got actually removed from the team, is that Dexter leads the idea of, hey, I'm actually probably the best player in this team individually. Because like firepower-wise, I'm kind of cracked, which has always been the case for Dexter, and that's always been a ceiling for him as well. But now you're bringing in Regali, who obviously wants a team to be around him. He's a very resource-heavy player. I've talked to former coaches and IGLs about him as well, because I actually did my research for this roster move, and everyone says, hey, this guy needs a lot of attention, like in terms of he needs a lot of resources to be built around him. So there was always going to be that clash coming in because you still don't have anyone to structure things around you. This is the point where I would have loved to see, hey man, you get rid of Erkast when you're getting rid of Ali, or maybe you get rid of Erkast down the line before you get rid of Dexter. Clearly, Liaz was going to be out of the team. I'm okay with putting Netic in there and maybe moving some roles around so that Inns has to cover for that. Dexter gets some of those, good anchor-sized roles instead of being in the middle of the map. The problem that now comes in is you have systematically removed every leadership figure. Now you're finally getting rid of Erkast. You have added more veterans, but JKS is not a vocal veteran. He's not going to be like a guy who's training the core, so to speak. And if you're bringing in Hazr, how the fuck is this ever going to be someone who can actually train your players? I like Hazr, by the way. I like him as an IGL. I would love to see him in a head coach with a new strategic coach. But your strategic coach is sort of JTR, a guy whose predominant experience is female Counter-Strike, which, all respective impact teams and whatnot, but it's not the same level. We all know this. Why can't we just have some sensible fucking leadership in this team? Why can't we just have a good coach brought in who knows how to win from tier 2? This is the other thing, by the way. Sorry. I just remembered, I talked to players and they defended Erkast to me, by the way. And their defense of Erkast is, this guy really knows how the top 5 to 10 teams play Counter-Strike. This guy knows how Mongols plays Counter-Strike. We want to play like that. You don't have those fucking players. You don't want to play like the top 5 teams in the world. You don't want to play like a Mongols in this case. You need someone like a Regin, right? People whose entire career has been defined off of upset wins from being tier 2 teams in Trick, in these situations where you come up with cute ideas, you come up with set strats, you come up with from spawn calling, and that's how you put yourself in that rank 15 to 20 mark. And after that, sure, you plateau, but right now you're not plateauing, you're going downhill. You're the opposite of Sisyphus. You can't push that rock up at all. The rock is crushing you consistently. You just keep going further and further down. This is insane, no matter what moves they go for. I'm so confused about why they bring in someone like an Hazr. Why are we going back to fucking vibes all the time? What is wrong with you?
It is funny you bring up Regin, because I always felt like Regin was more of a vibes coach as well, actually. But the thing is, you're not wrong in the fact that he did have. Yeah, you go back to the mouse lineup. You look at some of those names he had back there. You had Rops, you had Chris J, you had was Sunny in that team as well, if I'm not mistaken, right? So yeah, they had some pretty good players. But no, I agree with you, and I feel like this again comes down to, I'm going to blame the management. It's always a thing, and I'm going to blame FlyQuest management mainly because FlyQuest are an actual proper org, right? At least from everything I've heard thus far. Obviously,
they're real org. Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
they're real org. They have teams in league and everything, so they're a legitimate organization, not another, some bedroom org just cropping up, right? What recent news which makes me think of this would be what Wildcard did. I don't know if it's real or not, but Fozy said they used ChatGPT to decide who's going to be in the team or not, right? Like, obviously that's an extreme example, but I feel like for FlyQuest, you realize you picked up this team, you're paying a pretty neat sum, I'm quite sure, to keep these players in. You're making changes, which is really good, picking up Regali and everything. And why don't you just, kind of lay down the law and be like, we need you to get a real coach. There are coaches out there. Sure, you can't afford, the likes of an Exitaz or a Mither or some of these guys, but bro, there's so many people out there, even like ex-players from EU who have been active pretty recently, who can maybe shake things up, or at the very least give you a different viewpoint instead of just getting a coach who's gonna just go with what you want or what you think is best for the team, which hasn't quite worked out for such a long time. And I agree with you, Tom, as well. This is a team that I personally have an investment in as well, because I'm looking at people like Netic and Vex, and of course Ince, my favorite player from Down Under. I want them to do well. I don't just want it to be the story of the Mongols and Tai Lu's ascent and Linvision. I think us joining in would make things so much more exciting for the entire region overall. So the fact that it's the same thing over and over again with just different names coming in, dude, when did Azure do anything? Like he was IGLing for, what was the team called again? Extremum. Recently, right? I mean, comparatively recently.
Or most recently, the team that I think he last played on was it Sprout? It was Sprout.
He
Sprout Academy.
Sorry, he IGL for Sprout. And bro, that wasn't great, man. I love Hazr, legend of the scene, but he didn't do much there, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, what are you really going to add to this team? Because I feel like they need a bit of a shakeup. I'd love them to have a coach who probably has zero vibes, just a fucking machine just comes in and this is what you're gonna fucking do, and I don't care if you're not happy with me. Try it out for a few months and hopefully it clicks. You have the names to attract some pretty decent coaches, by the way. You have JKS in the team, you have Inns, you have a roster who's been able to take down some top tier teams. You would be an exciting prospect for even an up and coming coach who really wants to prove himself as well. You are an attractive team, honestly. So why don't you use that and get someone who's at least piques my attention?
Also, I'll add some more context into who FlyQuest is as an organization over here as well, because this is where I actually disagree with you a little bit, Bleh. I don't know how much of this is the organization's fault, because at the end of the day, the guy who's sort of behind them in terms of their CGO is Papa Smithy. He's a legendary League of Legends commentator and whatnot. Followed a lot of his content in League and everything, which is why it hurt more when he called me an intellectually dishonest motherfucker. But whatever, it's okay. I let bygones be bygones.
You used to that, right? So it's fine.
Yeah, I am, and I'm almost right about what I'm saying. Unfortunately, a year later, but hey, who remembers? My point
don't bring the drama to my podcast, man. Keep it on Twitter.
I do have receipts. I have the Twitter right now. But no, the thing is, when it comes to FlyQuest and League of Legends, in North America, this is the first team in God knows how long, and Jordan knows more about this than I do. I only just follow the scene very cursory. That's actually become good in the West in the sense that they're beating European teams and whatnot as well. From what I can tell, this is sort of like their like what you'd think NRG was back in 2018. Like, holy shit, this is like an actual good NA team with like homegrown NA talent. That's insane. You look at their coaching staff, the kind of people who Papa Smithy is hiring. It's Mithi and Nukta, who are literally some of those legendary European players of all time. Like Mithi's probably third most
you're talking about.
Yes, this is the league. I'm saying this is where the organization has a huge amount of involvement over here as well. I have to imagine if you're getting fucking answered that I can't in good conscience think that this would be the same guy who on one end is hiring Mithi, who for context is like the best captain Europe's
Isn't that more damning though? Like you're saying you're disagreeing with me, but I feel you're supporting me because that's even more damning.
So I think that this is organizational's fault for giving control to the players. I agree with that.
But there we go.
Yeah, but this is where I do still have to say, do the players think they can't get anyone else? Like, genuinely, this is my question. Like, is this like the situation where, you've had a glow up in like the last year or two, you're really good looking, but you don't realize it, so you're still going for like the 4s and the 5s, but really you're like, there's like 9s everywhere.
Yeah. There's an 8 or 9 out, there's interested.
You're kind of looking like that seems to be the situation for me, because, Jordan, you even said like your Mithars. I think you could probably get like a Mither. I think
that's
you
what
could
I was
get
thinking.
like
it was Bleh, by the way. It was Bleh that mentioned Mither.
Oh, sorry,
I that was the one that I was like, I wonder if there was a conversation there, because Mither is, as far as I understand at this point, a free agent. He was doing some stuff with Complexity on a temporary basis, last I knew, and actually has had ties.
They were doing decent, by the way.
Has had ties to the Australian scene in the past. I think the only player out of this group that he did coach back then was Inns. I think Inns was in that lineup in Renegades when he was. Yeah, he would have been. So I believe he would at least have that particular tie. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that could have been a possibility. Again, we don't know, obviously.
like a Kakafu who, listen, like sure might have been sent out a big disgrace, but if you actually look at how Big was playing and whatnot, and like some of the things they were doing, I don't think that would work for Big. I think that would work for a team like this, because one of the weird things is this is the one of, like, pound for pound, this is probably the most skilled roster we've had coming out of Australia in the past like 5 years. This is one of those skilled rosters in the world
100%.
when it comes to like the 10 to 20 mark. Vexside is really good. Like, genuinely, he's just very good. JKS, we all know he's a world-class anchor. Regali is proven to be somehow really good on land as well, with a rifle and
Very
an
clutch.
AWP, which is what you need. And like you said, mid-round, late round, pretty good. Netix is up-and-coming player whose mechanics we all know are going to be sick. Like, the issue is, by the way, for Netic, I had a chat with Regali. I think it's fine if I say this. He said that Netic is the best mechanical player I've played with since fucking Heavy God. Right? Like that is high praise coming from anyone at all. So you have what it takes to attract better talent. You have what it takes to be able to attract, maybe even the European IGL if you want to go for that direction eventually. Definitely better coaching staff. This team's just such a fucking shit show, man. It's ridiculous.
The one thing I'll say to cap this off, it's funny that, talking about an Australian team, it's been you two that have been doing the majority of the heavy lifting here, but that's fine. I'll just say, I think if you go back and look at some of the podcasts that Kassar did and how he talks about Hazr, he does actually have a lot of positive things to say, and I will just use that as like maybe a little bit of a tick in the book, because again, I guess the way that he described Hazr was that he's very, very smart, very intelligent. He knows Counter-Strike really well. He was actually a very good in-game leader. It's just his application.
He also added that his work ethic was really bad.
Exactly.
Well.
That's what I was going to say. The application of that wasn't quite so good. So, maybe there is a world where Hazr can come in, if it is Hazr that comes in here, and he can sort of bring some of that knowledge into that role. But obviously, he would have to really take that and run with it, I think. But I don't even know that it's going to be Hazr.
Can I just clarify what the best case scenario, in my opinion, should be? It's that JTR is replaced by Hazr. You get Hazr coming in. He can be like the strategic side vibes guy as well. And then you got a real head coach. Like that's literally the best case scenario in my head. I don't think JTR is irreplaceable. I think Hazr has a lot of legitimate value. I actually think Hazr was also really good at anti-stratting, even on Talon when we saw him going up against, some of these other teams. He was just held back by the quality of his players. We have legitimate reasons to want Hazr in the scene and on this team. It's just that, can I just please have a real coach? For fuck's sake, can I please have a real coach? Not someone who's just like, whose only experience is IGLing NKT, or whose only experience is IGLing Talon and Extreme. I'm like, can I just get a real fucking coach for once?
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Just the very last point from me here is that I actually, a good point by you again, T-Time, that, was it you, Bleh? I don't know. Erkast to somewhere in Mongolia would be a fucking fantastic move. Worst case scenario for him. Like, put him in Chinggis, Huns,
Warriors,
fucking Nomads, Eruption, any of these rosters. Like, he's going to bring more experience than any of those players have ever had in their entire lives, and he's hopefully going to be able to, in some way, transform that team. So I think that would be fucking awesome.
If he could be kind of like, it's a tall ask, but like a Mara 2.0. Bro, that's the one thing we've always had a problem with the Mongolian scene, because you take away Mara and the Mongols, what are we left with? Some cracked motherfucking aimers, insane aimers, but you need guidance, right? You need someone because you watch these games, you're like, what the fuck are you guys doing, right? So you get Erkast in. Obviously, he's got reps. He has respect from the region as well. Mongolian international playing experience. If you're a Mongolian player, young up-and-coming player, you look at this guy, apart from the Mongols, you have to look up to this guy. Right, you have to. So people will listen. He has a respect already with him. I feel like he could build Mongols 2.0. I think he's got what he takes. He's got experience. He's got a demeanor, and he's got the respect as well. Yeah, this could 100% work out.
I mean, that's a tough ask, obviously, to do Mongols 2.0, but like
the Mongolian team in the top 25.
Yes,
top 20 maybe even.
Right? Mongols 2.0, but dude, like
that doesn't become well bid.
Top 4, top 5 team in Asia. It's good enough, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, by the way, Mongols, I think just for the first time hit number 2 on HLTV ranking. So that was like today or yesterday.
And if they win their opening game, supposedly they hit number 1 in VRS, which is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, I've seen that too. We'll see what happens.
Oh God.
Just quickly, don't need to spend too much time on the next couple of ones here, but I think for the Aussie fans, Alistair and Valiance leaving Semper is pretty big news. Now, this HLTV article doesn't actually have it, but the replacements are going to be Addict and Hazr. So Keen's going to go back to Orping. He's going to stay as the in-game leader. Is this a good change? I don't think it's a bad change. I don't think it's going to necessarily shift the needle all that much, though. I don't think it's the kind of change that Semper is going to be astronomically better from. In fact, I would say I would almost expect a little bit of a downtick just because Keen's going to have to take on that responsibility of AWPing once again. And I don't think that... Look, I think he's actually quite a good AWPer. I definitely think he's probably the standout player on that roster, in my opinion. But... just the
Ali was kind of stick with them, to be frank.
Ali was good. That was the big conversation point when Ali came in, was that like, okay, some of this responsibility is taken away from Keen, and domestically speaking, at least Alistair can still very much hang and in fact dominate, as we saw in a lot of the matches that he played when he came back. But now you're kind of bringing in Addict and Hazr, and again, you know, I think they're good riflers. I think they're solid enough, but is solid enough going to be good enough to be able to beat the domestic Asia competition from Mongolia and the likes of you know, the top teams from China as well, if you're going to try and qualify through to the major spots? And you know what, that's what this team is obviously designed to do. I think that's going to be a difficult ask. I believe the first time we're going to get to see this lineup play is on the weekend in the Extremesland qualifier. If they qualify to Extremesland, they'll obviously go there and run it back and see if they can replicate or improve upon what Semper was able to do last year. I imagine they'd want to improve upon that. But yeah, overall, it's just a change. Like it's one of the changes of all time. It's like neither good nor bad as far as I'm concerned. I imagine you guys don't have too much to say on this one. So
I would love to see Alistair still be able to find like his space on like a Southeast Asian team or something like that, though. To be honest, like Nemesis comes to mind for me.
You could see what he was still capable of when the pressure wasn't on, right? When the pressure was off, he was just fucking fragging out. So I really feel like he still has something to give. I just don't see. That's a problem. Like, he's not right now. I don't think his mental, you know, strength isn't his strength, right? And obviously,
I don't think he.
Right there.
I don't think he wanted. From what I've heard, I don't think that Alistair wanted to continue to play, whether it was for Semper or CS in general. I'm not too sure, but I think it was partly his decision to just leave the roster.
I think it's kind of sad if it's just CS, because I feel like if there was a second best Aussie team, like when I say second best, like a legit contender to FlyQuest, I believe he would 100% belong there.
What if I told you this? Think about all these free agents: Dexter, Liaz, Alistair, Gratisfaction, Hats, Seiko, Bolter.
Okay.
Greyhound, run it back.
Greyhound 2.0, let's go.
The first three names, I'm actually down.
And that's why I led with them, by the way. Just to put it out there.
You take Dexter, Liaz, Ali, and you give them just like two cracked out Asian players, or like if you have the money, 2 European players. Yeah. That shit slaps, actually.
Yeah. The trouble is, all those players, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to get into a team without giving them money for it.
So get Malta, get Dick Stacey, we got 5, boom.
Yeah, Dick Stacey, I believe, works for Stake, the gambling company. So he's
probably given the sponsorship.
Let me have a quick look here. It doesn't say on his Twitter, but I'm pretty sure that he's involved with Stake or Kick or something in some way. Just saying, there's a fucking potential team there. Make a little run it back lineup. But yeah, nothing more to really say on this one. And that will take us to what's the next topic? I don't think I have a graphic for it. Oh, I do actually have a graphic for it. My bad. Hang on. This one. Bhavi and Phinn are back. Now, again, don't need to necessarily spend too much time on this one, but just for you, Bleh, Indian CS is not dead. We've got Bhavi, Wasteofammo, Phinn, Wisely, and Daymake. So I don't know much about these Russian guys, but at least for Bhavi, Phinn, and Wasteofammo, kind of cool to see them running it back. Made a little team here. Don't think that they're going to do a whole lot, but it's kind of nice to see them kicking around. So shout out Bhavi and Phinn one time.
Yeah, that's not much I can say. But I saw them play last night. I think it was against... was it Chinggis or Huns?
It was
one of those guys.
It was Eruption, I think.
Eruption, yeah, sorry. The other Mongolian team.
I'm also
and I won't lie, it was kind of rough. Then again, you know, it's still pretty early days, right? And the thing is, like, the Russian players have, I mean, it's right there in the article as well. I think one of them has actually had some experience playing with some of these Indian guys. So maybe that's why I think it was Daymake, yeah. With Wasteofammo, he's been around. I've seen his name quite a few times, man, in Southeast Asia, but he hasn't really stood out.
He's such a joker, man. He's so... I can't tell you how fucking good this guy is. Because I coached a lot of teams and that have been just obliterated single-handedly by him. But every time he's against like someone better, he's just such a joker, unfortunately. It sucks. Otherwise, he really could have been like a talent.
Well, there we go.
There we go.
No, I mean, what can I say? Good luck. I'm actually happy that they're still, kind of sticking around after God's Reign folded and they haven't disappeared. I still feel like there's at least a handful, of Indian players who can make a dent in the scene, hopefully down the line. So yeah, good luck. That's all I can say.
Yep. All right.
They've also found the secret of not hating the entire team, which is by not having all the players be people, of the same nationality, which seems to be the issue with Pakistani and Indian teams. Is like at the second you get 5 Indians in a team or 5 Pakistanis in a team, the stories I hear about from all of these teams, like, oh, fuck this guy, this is what he said to me, this is what he said to me, da 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 da. And it all just stacks up within 2 months, even if you're making it.
It's the South Asian culture, man. We're just used to bitching. And also, and you know what? Why else I like this? This is something which I have brought up in the past as well when I've spoken to a few Indian teams. If you're an Indian team or a Pakistani team, I'm assuming as well, tea time, they're going to be communicating in either Hindi or in Urdu, right? Most of the times. And they're like, oh, I want to get an international coach. I'm like, buddy, all of you can speak English. You can speak enough English for Counter-Strike, like Counter-Strike English, pretty solid English. And, you're making a coach's life so much harder just communicating in Hindi. He doesn't know what you guys are calling about. And they keep doing it. They don't care. They're just used to it. So this might force them to, kind of start talking in English. And I'm not trying to be an English supremacist. I'm just saying it is the Counter-Strike language. Look at all the teams out in the world out there who are not called a Mongol to Spirit. They have to call them in English, right? So just make yourself kind of, someone, just
available.
adapt to your resume. Like if you're a really good player and someone wants to pick you up, you don't have to relearn how to think and speak in English as you're playing at the same time. So I think this is the way forward for them.
Make it till you make it, baby.
You're like the modern day Sir Syed, just telling everyone to speak in English now. There you go.
There we go. Fucking coconut.
All right, moving on. Last topic for the day. We thought it would be pretty pertinent to just do a quick VRS check-in and just have a quick look at the upcoming tournaments because the cutoff for the major qualifier is October 6th. So this is the current projected rankings for October 6th for Asia. As you can see, Mongol's going to take that first slot, no doubt about that. Tyloo, almost no doubt about that, going to be taking the second slot as well, unless something absolutely insane happens at Fisher, because Tyloo and Limvision are both playing at Fisher over the coming weeks. So if Tyloo bomb out and Limvision go really deep, could they overcome that 200-point gap? I assume so. But the more interesting slots are 4, 5, and 6, Huns, FlyQuest, Chinggis. Doesn't necessarily matter as far as seeding is concerned, but we can take a quick look here at the overall Asia ranking and start to think about who else is in the running. We've obviously got Rare Atom right now in 6th. The projected ranking shows that they're dropping a little bit, so then they must be losing some points that are important to them over the next month or so. Kaleido's another team, another name that's been popping up lately. They're kind of still a little bit of a ways off, but they're playing in a little bit in the next few weeks that may potentially be able to put them over the line. And then outside of that, it's maybe like Nomads and Eruption, depending on how things might go at some of those Mongolian tournaments. I don't think Semper are going to be in the
down
running.
a little bit more on number 17. There's also Legion right now. You never know. 17 to 6, it's not that hard.
Oh,
Maybe the Pakistani is going to.
Is this a Pakistani
Not
team?
halfway.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Never fall for that tea time. I've learned it the hard way.
No. So I would say, realistically speaking, you're probably, I think, cutting it off at 10 at Eruption. But just to quickly round out the tournaments that teams are going to play in, and also I think it's important to talk about FlyQuest in this because they are tanking points. Like they've been dropping like a rock lately. They actually need to get some decent points on the board just to ensure their slot. Maybe it's already in the slot. I haven't actually done the math, but they're playing at Draculan, which is, as far as I know, currently confirmed to be €8,400 plus LAN. Depending on how many teams sign up there, I think if they get to 32, they've already got 16 teams. I think if they get to 32, it's €12,800 prize pool. So starting to pump up. But more importantly, LAN wins would be kind of nice for FlyQuest to get. They'll also likely, I imagine, play the CAC qual. I'm not sure how that's going to work for them, but that's a $0 tournament. And again, also caveat, I don't know how many of these are all VRS tournaments, the ones that we're going to be talking about here. I don't know if CAC quals are actually VRS rated. I don't know if, for example, there's a couple of other tournaments. So let's just quickly go down the list. Anyway, FlyQuest can play Draculan and CAC qual. I think that's the only stuff that they've got coming in the next month or so. Mongolia
Draculan is VRS for sure.
Draculan obviously is VRS, yeah. The Mongolian teams will be playing the ESN National Championship, which is a 10k USD LAN. That obviously is going to be VRS rated. They also can play ECL Asia if they're in ECL Asia, which also is VRS rated. And then also they'll likely play the CAC qual, which I don't know whether or not that will be VRS rated. Chinese teams can play the Ukilin. I think it's Ukilin Pinnacle of Battle which really is only
It's
relevant
pretty
to only relevant to Kaleido, but it is quite big. It's a $20,000 land. So let's
Isn't
assume
it a $100,000 land? Am I getting confused?
I think Pinnacle of Battle 1 is only a $20,000 land. Pinnacle of Battle 2
Okay.
might have been the bigger one, but I think that one's been rescheduled. You can quickly look it up while I'm.
Oh, you're right.
going through
It has been postponed. Okay.
Yeah, $20,000 land, I think, for Kaleido. If they win that, I think that might be their first LAN win, which would obviously be pretty dramatic in terms of points that they would get. So that, if they were able to win that, I could see them actually jumping up a couple of 100 points. That's where this gets interesting with Kaleido. Obviously, CAC qual as well for Chinese teams. Hero Oasis Esports Season 1. Don't even know what the fuck that is, but that's 8,450. I don't know if that's like an amateur league or something like that, but that's just there. That's in China. And then I thought the XSC Pro League and Challenger League were going to be a factor as well, but as far as I know, as of today, they have been rescheduled / cancelled, so they will not be happening. And then obviously ESL Asia as well, but probably only really matters for Kaleido and potentially Rare Atom, but Rare Atom are not playing in that Pinnacle of Battle, so they'd be relying on CAC quals, which again we don't know if that's VRS ranked, and like whatever they can get done in ECLA.
Where could we find out if they're VRS ranked or not?
I think on HLTV they have a thing,
HLTV.
but not all of these tournaments have got a HLTV.
Basically, if the qualifiers are going to be on
tournament page.
HLTV, it will be ranked.
Yeah, but I don't. None of like the Pinnacle of Battle doesn't have a HLTV page. CAC Qual doesn't have a HLTV page just yet. This Hero Esports thing doesn't have a page yet. Like a lot of them, they only come like a couple of weeks or a week before the actual tournament. So
then I don't think it's gonna be VRS ranked then.
Well, the Pinnacle of Battle surely has to be, I think, because it's a $20,000 land. Like that has to be VRS ranked. There's no reason they would be running it if not. But that's my take.
It does say Valve tier 2 on Wikipedia, so I think Pinnacle of Battle is ranked.
Okay, all right. Yeah. I guess because if I'm not mistaken, again, the rules are so convoluted. Even I don't know what's happening at times, but it's like
it is, isn't it?
I don't think anyone does, honestly. Apart from fucking what's his name, Messioso.
Udmood, Messioso, and like Mischief CS2.
Yeah.
I feel like if you don't announce your quals or events before a certain cutoff from the date's going to happen, it can't be VRS ranked, right?
Yeah, but this Pinnacle of Battle thing's been announced for ages. Like it's been
cool.
It's old news. It's just no one gives a fuck about it because it's like a China domestic tournament, and only nerds like us even know it exists if you're not in China. Anyway, just to round it out, the only other region really that's of relevance is Oceania, and they can play in the Extremesland qual, which will be Rooster, Semper, and a couple of other teams that are not relevant in this discussion. Although Rooster's probably not relevant even, to be fair. Also, don't know if that's even ranked. It's a $3,000 LAN, but I don't think it's actually VRS ranked. It's a qualifier only. So that I'd have to get clarification on. But unless that's VRS ranked, I don't think Semper can make it, even if they win everything else, like CCT Oceania, $6,500 for each series of that, which they're currently playing another one of those. They won the last one. Did they win the last one? No, they won the last ECL Cup. I think they won the last CCT as well. So they're basically winning everything. But even if they do win everything, I don't think they get enough points. Because
is FlyQuest guaranteed to make it?
No, I don't think so necessarily.
They're not guaranteed.
That's my point. Is that I think they need to do something at Draculaland and then they'll be okay. But right now it's like Kaleido could jump up a couple of 100 points. FlyQuest could lose some points from like Decay. Like Chinggis, Huns, Nomads, Eruption can also get points from ESN National Champs. Although Huns and Chinggis, as far as I know, have got the 10 LAN games. So like the most recent 10 LAN games counts towards your VRS ranking. So it's like they'll just be replacing their LAN points.
Right.
Whereas like some of these other teams, like Semper doesn't have 10 LAN games. FlyQuest potentially doesn't have 10 LAN wins, I should say. I don't think these teams have 10 LAN wins. Look at Semper here, by the way. This is what I'm talking about. Like, it's kind of impossible for them to do anything. Like, this has just been... So this is where they play Defrag Invitational in March 2025. And then it's just like decay because their LAN points are disappearing. And there's no LAN points.
Yep.
So it'll jump up a bit, assuming Extremesland is LAN rated VRS, but I don't know that it is VRS. In which case, I don't think they can get back there. So anyway, that's pretty much that. But yeah, just to wrap that up, that's pretty much where things are standing. I would be a bit surprised if we don't get actually these 6 teams that it is projected. I can't really see Huns or Chinggis dropping out because they'll play at the national champ, the ESL
If FlyQuest don't make it, it's going to be such a
and if FlyQuest don't make it, that will be fucking cooked. Yeah,
that's such a tragedy if they don't.
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah, we can wrap it up there. That's pretty much everything that we've got for today.
Yep. Somebody once told me.
Okay, time to go back to war with you. All right, let's go.
All right, yeah,
All right, get the nukes out.
get your finger on the button. Fucking get out of here. Look, we'll probably be back again for one more episode before the invites go out. I want to say, would be my guess. So like,
Yeah,
one
like,
more-
Yeah.
in a couple of
like
weeks.
preview.
3 episodes before that.
Well, we could, but we won't have enough to talk about unless some more drama drops.
let's see if Captain Mo's involved, in which case I'm dropping it.
I
We're
just
dropping
want to
an
see
episode
Lin
right
Vuchin
there.
and Tyloo do well at Fissure, man. That's all I
Yes,
want.
well, we'll have that to talk about at least.
If they
Anyways.
win it again, if Tyloo win Fisher, yeah. Not
Tyler-
If
enough.
Tyloo wins this Fissure, that would be insane. Like, genuinely.
But yeah, I think Fisher should be fun because we have like top 4, like the top 3 teams in Asia playing over there. So I think that should be something to talk about once it's done, hopefully.
Yep. All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, do those things. buymeacoffee.com/Elfishguy if you're so inclined. See you in the next one. Peace out. Hey guys, just at the end of that video and heading into 2025, I want to give a massive shout out to Jean, who has been a big supporter of mine on buymeacoffee.com/Elfishguy. She's been a member for over 12 months. And if you'd be interested in supporting my content and getting this content grind going, then head over there as well and check it out. Thank you very much.